Good day and welcome, America and beyond. I'm Tom Donahue for Tom Donahue Reports, Patriotism in Action. So glad you can be with us. This is the weekend just prior to the presidential election, well, elections in general. And so let me start off by saying that we have invites out to the alternatives, the independents, the third partiers. And we do have a confirmation, but I'm going to surprise you with that one because you'll be hearing that interview that we'll be recording here very shortly. But just keep an eye out for and certainly keep tuned to this program. And the best way to do that is by going to TomDonahueReports.com. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast, which is free. That's right, free expression, free access, always. So if you're a subscriber or follower of the podcast, which is very easy to do, you'll receive those immediate alerts. But more importantly, not just alerts, but you'll have the podcast delivered to you. You click on the link, it opens up, the player's there. If you choose to download, you can do that, or just simply listen by virtue of clicking on that link to listen. And you can also share those links through your social media, through your own personal and professional and political networks. Okay, the other way is through YouTube. When we upload to YouTube and put our pictures with our audio, that is also a way of keeping in touch. And then we have two blogs. That's right. Sometimes I'm more active than others. And one is Tom Donahue Reports, which actually Tom Donahue, the URL is tomdonahue.blog.com, and the second is media related, and that one is the Talk Circuit, but the URL for that is talkradio.blog.com. But you'll be able to click and right on through our blog, icons, logos, and post right there at TomDonahueReports.com. I watched, not all, but much of the third-party debates. And I want to thank Free and Equal Elections Foundation because they're trying to break through and give opportunity to lesser-known voices, alternatives to the duopoly, the controlled monopoly. And you might say, well, it's a two-party monopoly. Really, it's one party with two names. And they're in bed together. You have the body of the serpent with two heads that need to be severed, and I've mentioned that many a time. So there were four participants that I think that this association or organization took seriously, that had enough ballot access that it was worthy of their invite to a serious debate. And the four representatives of their respective parties was Jill Stein, the Green Party, Virgil Goode, the Constitution Party, Rocky Anderson, the Justice Party, and Gary Johnson, representing the Libertarians. Now, all four of them have been involved to some degree in political activism, or actually have held offices, and same with their VPs, in some of those parties that aforementioned, but also the two major parties. And much of it comes through their frustration with the two controlled parties of this political monopoly in the United States of America. And they're going to have a second debate that was delayed due to Sandy. And that you'll be able to see that on various, YouTube channels and various other alternative networks. And I'm not sure who the moderators are. I don't know if Larry King will return for that or not. But thank God for YouTube, for the Internet, for alternative streaming and options as it relates to media in general, or you can call it the new media or digital media. I'm not going to declare any winners. It's not really that important because, as you may already surmise or suspect, none of these candidates will win. But guess what? And some say, well, I never watch MSNBC. If you're a staunch Republican or considered to be conservative, unless you want to just spy on the enemy. Or you do it in a very closeted way, or subversive way. Then you have the Democrats. Oh, we never watch Fox unless we're checking up on the enemy. Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, so how are you ever going to get a broader perspective? You're not watching the left, the right, and in between. The black, the white, the gray. That's the way I see it. So I happened to be watching Lawrence O'Donnell, and he talks about the fact, and again, I don't know how true this is, but he at least claims that he's always voted for independent voices and candidates, with the exception of one. Well, we know who the one is. No, he's not the guy that had the tingle running up and down his leg. No, that's Chris Matthews, the motor mouth. But Lawrence O'Donnell said that he was told that when he cast his vote for the lesser known or the alternatives or the third partiers, that he was wasting his vote. Well, he reminded his colleagues, and his friends, that every time there is a presidential election, and if you cast your vote for one of the two major candidates, at least half, it depends on how the vote breaks down, but close to half of those that will vote, that is if there's just two majors, if there's an independent like a Reform Party, Perot, these percentages would not be quite accurate. But what I'm trying to say is that just give or take, you get pretty close to a 50-50 divide. And so a little less than, say, 50, maybe if it's a blowout, it could be maybe 35, 40%. But anywhere from a third to nearly half of the electorate that would vote for that candidate that happens to lose in that 4-year cycle. Did they waste their vote? Anyone that voted for John McCain or Al Gore or John Kerry or Papa Bush going for a second term, did you waste your vote when your candidate did not win? Well, of course not. So again, my I would say principled approach or the way I view politics in terms of voting and in terms of elections is that I always vote principle over politics and principle over party. And so you could never regret that. The only vote that you'll regret, no, it's not the one you don't cast in many instances. It's the one that you decided to play it safe, that you went the lesser of evils. Because then you will have regrets. And so whether you put your stamp on the winner or you voted for the runner-up, if it wasn't the person that you felt was the best person, not necessarily the most qualified, but the one that you agreed with in principle, then you should have regrets. Now, the other thing that I have said all along as it relates to voting is that if you can find no candidate, let's say there's no third-party candidate, no independent candidate that you feel good about, and you're in one of those states, which most of those states don't allow for none of the above vote, well, then your none of the above would be you don't vote. Or if you find certain races that you do find someone that you feel compatible with and you feel that's qualified and will take those positions that you hold near and dear to your heart and your soul, that is your political heart and soul, then you'll have no regrets by voting just for sporadically or selectively throughout that ballot. So these are just some things I wanted to raise. Now, by the way, a political blowhard and showman, Donald Trump, appears on David Letterman. And he's got all these I'll donate $5 million or what, all these things for Obama to release his college records. I could care less. I don't care how many years he went to Columbia. I don't care if he lied. I don't care. That means, all that means nothing to me. whether he's 1 year, 2 years. And we talked about how the documentation seemed to indicate he was there 2 years at Columbia, and they had him listed twice. I had some college records that had to get corrected because of there were some errors. I mean, transcription services, all these things. Sometimes they just some people thought I went to the Camden campus, not the New Brunswick campus, and I've seen that happen with others. So it happens. When I attended Rutgers University, and I did receive my Bachelor of Arts, and I do have my diploma on my wall, and I'm proud of it. But let's just get back to Donald Trump. So he's on with David Letterman. And Letterman's, playing kind of nice, and they're volleying back and forth. And, a lot of these things are predetermined in the green room and with show producers. And, essentially what's going to be asked, a little ad-libbing will happen. Well, Letterman just says, well, Trump's trying to market his ties. David Letterman's into ties. And I don't know how that all came about in terms of whether Donald Trump asked for that or Letterman decided he was going to bring the ties into the interview. Well, the thing that Donald Trump didn't realize, I'm sure he didn't realize, he didn't anticipate, and that was foolish, was David Letterman said, well, where are these manufactured? Yeah, he pushed Donald Trump as to where were these ties, his signature ties that he sells and profits from. Where are they produced, where are they manufactured? And he started to stumble. And David Letterman knew he had him. Because he finally had to admit, by looking at the tags, Bangladesh and China. So he keeps pushing Obama on the fact that he did not feel that Obama stands up to the Chinese and the trade war. And they continue to, hammer us unfairly. And that's why we have these major trade deficits. And more or less, he doesn't use the term protectionism, but he's kind of saying that we need to protect our interests and we need to fight harder in terms of these trade commissions or whatever you call them, councils that decide certain trade issues. Well, now you have a guy that's a complete hypocrite, and you could see he realized he was got, and Letterman did a great job. And so here's a comedian, a late night comedy talk show host that was able to profoundly embarrass Donald Trump. Could you imagine if Donald Trump had actually became a real candidate? I mean, you recall, you remember what happened to this particular guy at the National Correspondence, dinner, where the President Obama embarrassed, Donald Trump. So you have a guy that is completely discredited. Now let's look at another New Yorker, Bloomberg. What has Bloomberg done? Well, Bloomberg was more concerned about the New York City Marathon. Well, finally came to his senses because of pressure. And he relented. Or I should say he decided to cancel the marathon. Can you imagine these marathoners running around seeing these disaster zones from Sandy? Oh, but he did endorse Obama because he said Obama's the strongest on climate control and change. Oh, isn't that wonderful? The same guy, this billionaire, that decided that he was going to run for a third term. And we're going to change the law so that he could be a third-term mayor. And Bloomberg did become a third-term mayor. Now, in the next broadcast, we're going to talk about the men who built America. And quite frankly, the History Channel has done a fabulous job. Although they should have said the men who control America. But some very, very interesting quotes, some very interesting information I want to share with you. I'm Tom Donahue for Tom Donahue Reports. The website is tomdonahuereports.com. Check out all the multimedia features and functions and benefits at TomDonahueReports.com. Till we meet again, have a great day. Tom Donahue for Tom Donahue Reports.